Hey friends, and welcome to this new video dedicated to Garten of Banban 9. Chapter 9 was announced just a few days ago and the internet is already going crazy. The hype is huge and so many fans are already creating theories, analyzing trailers and searching for hidden messages. But today we want to do something different. In this video, we will try to discover together the possible release date of Garten of Banban 9. Yes, because there are some hidden clues in the previous chapters that could give us some answers. And if we put together the right calculations, we might figure out when we will finally be able to play the new chapter. Before we start, if you are as hyped as I am for this game, subscribe to the channel right now and leave a big like on this video. On this channel, I will bring you all the news, theories, and secrets about Garten of Banban 9, and you definitely don't want to miss them. So turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Now let's get back to it. How can we calculate the possible release date? Well, let's start with an important fact. The Euphoric brothers, the developers of the game, have always followed a pretty consistent rhythm between one chapter and the next. If we look at the release dates of the previous chapters, we can notice an interesting pattern. But that's not all, because there are some hidden details that could give us other key information. So, stay with me until the end, because we will use all the clues to try to figure out the most likely release date of Garten of Banban 9. Okay. Now we're getting into the most interesting part of the video. Let's start with a very important message that we've already analyzed in previous videos, but today we need to dig deeper because it could completely change our predictions. The developers, the Euphoric brothers, have already officially confirmed that they are working on Chapter 9 for quite some time. The development of Chapter 9 might have started even before the release of Chapter 8. This is a crucial piece of information because it completely changes the game. Why? Because if we think about what happened with Chapter 8, we know very well that the wait was extremely long, almost 15 months after the release of the previous chapter. All the fans had to wait forever, and this made everyone fear that the same thing could happen with Chapter 9. But now, thanks to what we know, things might be very different. If development really started before the release of Chapter 8, then this means that the Euphoric brothers have already completed a big part of the work and could already be in an advanced phase. This leads us to believe that we definitely won't have to wait 15 months. In fact, there's a very high chance that Chapter 9 will arrive much sooner than most fans expect. And here comes the most important question. How many months will we have to wait before Chapter 9 is finally available? To figure that out, we need to do some precise calculations, analyzing both the development times of the previous chapters. But be careful, because what we're about to discover could completely change our idea about the possible release date. In the next segment, we'll make some detailed considerations, putting together all the information to reach the most accurate prediction of when we'll finally be able to play Chapter 9. Okay friends, now we're getting to the core of the discussion and we need to figure out how many months we'll have to wait before we can finally get our hands on Chapter 9. Let's first take a step back in time, because to make a solid prediction, we need to carefully analyze what happened with the previous chapters. For Chapter 6, we had to wait about 4 months after the release of Chapter 4. Then for Chapter 7 the wait was slightly longer, around 5 months. But when we get to Chapter 8 the situation changes completely. This time we had to wait a massive 15 months. Now, why was there such a huge difference? The answer is pretty clear and we need to consider several factors. First of all, between the release of Chapter 7 and Chapter 8, the Euphoric brothers released 2 additional games. Unplagued, the first multiplayer game by Euphoric brothers. Garten of Banban 0, a special prequel of the series. These 2 projects inevitably influenced the development of Chapter 8 significantly. On top of that, we can't forget another crucial detail. With Chapter 8, the developers decided to make a huge quality leap in terms of graphics and gameplay. They reworked animations, environment details, lighting systems, and even the AI of the characters. All of this required a lot of time and resources. So it's clear that the 15-month wait for Chapter 8 is not a real benchmark to calculate the release of Chapter 9. The situation this time is completely different and I'll explain why right now. As we mentioned in the previous part, the Euphoric brothers confirmed that development on Chapter 9 started already, probably even before Chapter 8 was released. This means that work on the next chapter is already in an advanced stage and, as a result, we definitely won't have to wait that long. Now, we're getting into the most important part of our reasoning and we're starting to put together all the pieces to try to calculate the most likely release window for Chapter 9. First of all, we need to make something very clear. We shouldn't consider the 15 months of waiting we had with Chapter 8 if we start counting from when it was announced in 2024. That data is no longer relevant because, as we said in the previous part, the development of Chapter 9 started much earlier, and the situation now is completely different. What we actually need to do is analyze another time interval, which is much more useful for our calculations. In fact, between Chapter 0 and Chapter 8, the waiting time was much shorter. Chapter 0 was released in February 2025 and, if you remember, it was announced about 4 months earlier. This means that the Euphoric brothers were able to complete an important project in a very short time, which shows that in recent months they have greatly improved their development speed. If we put all this information together, we can identify a clear pattern. In the latest chapters, the average waiting time has always been between 4 and 6 months, depending on the complexity of the content. And here we reach the crucial point. Chapter 9 won't be a small or short chapter. On the contrary, it's going to be a huge chapter, very similar in size to Chapter 8, and, most likely, it will bring even more improvements in graphics, gameplay, and introduce new mechanics and brand new characters. That's exactly why I don't believe it's realistic to think it will come out in just 4 months. A chapter this big and ambitious requires more time to be completed, tested, and optimized. Based on all the clues we have and the developers' usual timelines, the most logical prediction is that Chapter 9 will require at least 6 or 7 months of waiting. And this leads us to a solid hypothesis. Chapter 9 could be released between February and March 2026. Of course, until we get an official announcement, we can't be completely sure, but by analyzing past release dates, the developers' hints, and the type of content we're expecting, this release window seems the most likely one. Now let's talk about the possible days. Okay friends, we have reached the final part of our analysis, and now we need to answer one of the most difficult questions. What will be the exact release day of Chapter 9? This time, however, we have to be honest. It will be practically impossible to predict the exact day. And I will explain why. In the past, it was much easier because the Euphoric brothers followed a fairly consistent pattern. Except for Chapter 6, most main chapters of Garten of Banban were released on Fridays. But things changed with the release of Chapter 8. This time, to everyone's surprise, the developers decided to break the pattern and release the game on a Thursday. This change made us understand an important thing. There is no longer a fixed rule for choosing the launch day. Therefore, Chapter 9 could come out on any day of the week without a fixed reference like the previous chapters. That said, we can still narrow it down. Based on the calculations we made in the previous parts, the most likely release window is between February and March 2026. This means that any day of those 2 months could potentially be the release day of Chapter 9. However, there is an important detail to consider. We have to exclude Saturdays and Sundays. And this is not a choice of the developers but a technical issue. In fact, the Steam platform does not allow new games to be released on weekends. So we can be certain that Chapter 9 will never release on a Saturday or Sunday. This means we should focus only from Monday to Friday. And of course, there is always the possibility that the Euphoric brothers return to the old habit and choose a Friday to give an entire weekend dedicated to the game. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end. You are amazing. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.